who work for the federal government and lost their union rights be restored right now. I was in the Army, and I'm glad people recognize the service of people who are in the Army. But we shouldn't be having a parade. We shouldn't be having a parade until every veteran has the health care they deserve.
They take every opportunity to privatize our health care. What do you say about that? We are tired of it. Veterans are tired of being celebrated on Veterans Day, remembered on Memorial Day, and forgotten about after Election Day. What do you say about that? Are you tired? They want to make a quick buck off of the sacrifices, off of the pain and the scars of all those of us who have served this country.
Today marks the beginning of what history will remember as a purge of transgender service members. An unconscionable order from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth that puts thousands of service members across the country and around the world in the crosshairs of their own government. Troops who serve with integrity and distinction are being told that their presence is a problem, that their identities are incompatible with patriotism, that they must choose, walk away from the careers that they've built, or stand and stay to be persecuted. We are the canary in the coal mine. What they do to us in the headlines, they will do to you in silence.
We are united to demand that America keeps its promise to us. We are united to stand up for those that feel that they don't have a voice right now. We are united to support our sisters and brothers that are still wearing the uniform and cannot advocate for themselves at this moment.
You must fight! 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 The jerk that's over in the building over here at the White House, he needs to hear you. And Secretary Doug Collins definitely needs to know it's not his VA. That VA belongs to us veterans. He needs to listen to us. That is our VA. That is our spouse's VA. That is our dependent's VA. And he needs to leave it alone. So I'm going to ask you to make some noise with me right now. Woo! Hands off our VA! Hands off our VA! Hands off our VA! Hands off our VA! Let's make some noise. Let them hear you. I want them to know across this country that they can no longer do budget cuts on the backs of veterans. We're not going to take it anymore. So hands off our VA! 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 Hands off our VA!
While we are dismayed by those who would dismantle this gem of American healthcare, we are not deterred. And while we are disappointed by those who would take this public treasure built up by generations, by many hands, working long nights in dark hospitals, and sell it off in the name of choice or modernization or efficiency, for profit or political gain, or perhaps out of loyalty to some ideal of private sector competition, we are not defeated, because if you want competition on a fair playing field, I have 3 words for you. Bring it on. And for you veterans, I have the same 3 words. Bring it on.
you. Wow, what a turnout. First off, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who made this afternoon possible. And I'm honored to get the chance not only to speak today in my capacity as a senator, but also to listen to all of you, as one of you, as a fellow veteran. Because I may currently be a member of Congress, but in my heart, first and foremost, I will always be a soldier. And I am damn proud of that. I am here today because, like you, I love this nation. In fact, I love it more than I do my own life, which is why I was willing to lay down my life to defend this nation when this nation called, just as you did. I know that you are here because, like me, we are sick of politicians promising to look out for veterans when they're on the campaign trail and then abandoning them when they take office. I am sick of military families being treated like props. And I am sick of people in power wrapping themselves in the flag with their left hand and then with the other signing off on orders that sell out our heroes to line their own pockets. You deserve better. You've earned better. After all, since the first shots rang out at Lexington and Concord, since the Tuskegee Airmen took the skies to defend a nation that still wouldn't let them sit in the same lunch counter as their white peers, since the members, the Nisei Battalion, volunteered to serve even as the nation put their families into internment camps, since our warriors landed on the beaches of Normandy on this very day 81 years ago, those who have worn the uniform have defied the odds to define America at her best. America is what she is today because of the blood our brothers and sisters shed in combat zones. Our children grow up with the rights that they deserve because of the sweat that's poured down our faces, everywhere from the dust of Fallujah and Kandahar to the jungles of Vietnam. Our sacrifices were the currency we paid to defend America's freedoms. And even as I stand here on these titanium legs, with the wheelchair that I proudly earned by my side, I would not take back those sacrifices in a second. Because America is worth it. As flawed as she may be, she is worth it. I know some of us here hung up our uniforms long ago, but looking out at you all, I see people who recognize that in this perilous moment for our country, our mission today is not too different than what it was when we served in uniform. To defend the Constitution, to protect this democracy, to defend freedoms, and to keep our nation as strong as she should be. That is why each of you here today took off work, traveled from every pocket of this country, and showed up in this wonderful muggy heat today. It's not even a dry heat. Not because it was easy. Guys, it's never easy. But because we love this country enough to try to shape her for the better, even when the road ahead is hazy, even when the task ahead is daunting. We've come together this afternoon because even if we're no longer wearing the uniform, we are always wearing the flag on our shoulder, facing forward. We are here because we are not afraid to call out the wrongs that need to be righted, or to call out wannabe kings that need a history lesson. We are here because we refuse to see the democracy that we fought so hard for get dismantled. Because we refuse to let the health care and benefits our buddies rightfully earned be gutted. And because we refuse to let thousands of veterans who choose to continue serving this nation as federal workers be fired for no apparent reason. Of the over 6,000 veterans this president has fired, it includes folks who were working at the Veterans Crisis Line, for God's sake. The veterans there. The veterans there are doing some of the toughest work imaginable to support our heroes in their absolutely darkest hour. These are the people the administration has kicked to the curb over the past few months. That should tell you everything you need to know about how the guys in power actually feel about us vets. So let's be clear, the only reason they're doing all of this is to try to pick our veterans' pockets, our taxpayers' pockets, so that they can give even tax breaks to the rich guys they pal around with on their golf courses. Let me say this another way. They care more about making billionaires, allowing billionaires to buy yet another private jet than ensuring that our veterans have access to the benefits that they have earned. They care more about stroking Donald Trump's ego. I'm an old air assault pilot, guys. They have to censor me. Anyway, they're stroking Donald Trump to the tune of a $30 million birthday parade. You know what they should do? I asked the Secretary of the Army yesterday, why would you do that? He said, well, you only get to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday once. And I said, well, wouldn't it be better to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday by spending $30 million on military families' child care? Or maybe, let's spend that $30 million to save veterans' jobs. Or how about making better access to health care for veterans? So let's call what it is. This budget bill is a middle finger to our heroes. Where's that middle finger? Raise that thing high. It's a slap in the face to the sacrifices that our veterans have made. Frankly, it's bullshit. And every one of us who serves should feel insulted. I certainly do, and I bet some of you do too. They're even firing fully trained, fully qualified members of our military who are parts of teams who are trans. People who earn their positions, as opposed to Pete Hegseth, who didn't earn his other than by sucking up to Donald Trump. I say keep the trans service members and fire Pete Hegseth. Listen, the important thing now is to channel our outrage into action. A couple months after my Black Hawk was shot down in Iraq, a United States Senator named Dick Durbin walked into my Walter Reed hospital room and gave me his phone number, saying to call him anytime if I or any of the other patients around me needed some help. I'm not sure that he thought I would take his words quite literally, because there was only 2 service members from Illinois at the time, but I called him anyway, a lot. I caught him way, way too much. At the time, I was the highest ranking amputee on the ward, and I had a lot of senior NCOs who were also amputees. So we all felt responsible for the men and women around us. So I kept on ringing up a United States Senator to help me help these folks get their pay, get their benefits, even to help get that one damn elevator in the hospital that we needed to take to go to 07 formation in our wheelchairs working again. Wow. At that point, I know, we're in wheelchairs and they're making us go to 07 formation. Fuck that.
Fuck that.
At that point, I was so early in my recovery that I could barely sit up for 15 minutes at a time. But when Dick Durbin looked at me, he saw past the wounds, he saw past the wheelchair, he saw a soldier in need of her next mission. And he recognized long before I did that just because I could no longer fly Black Hawks for the Army didn't mean that I couldn't find a new way to serve my nation. And then he said the words that changed my life. He told me that I could best help veterans around me by running for Congress myself. I thought he was nuts, but it turns out he was right. So all these years later, I am asking each of you to take on that new mission too, and many of you already have. Because personally, I am sick and tired of a guy who was never brave enough to serve, claiming that America, that some of our buddies died for, isn't already great. And it pisses me off that a man who cried burn spurs when his nation needed him the most a 5-time draft-dodging coward who calls fallen service members suckers and losers. It pisses me off that guy would use our heroes as political pawns to get elected, then screw them over so badly once he took office. So if you are pissed off too, if you think veterans deserve better than to be fired by the thousands, if you think our buddies deserve more than to have their health care ripped away because Trump wants to put another dollar into a rich guy's pockets, well then I need you by my side. Let's make sure that our fields of fire overlap in this fight. I need you to think of today not just as a singular moment, but as the start of our new collective mission. A mission to stand up for the buddies we served with, to do right by the warriors who came before us, and to look out for all of those men and women still serving in uniform. Those young soldiers and sailors, those Marines and airmen and coasties who are ready to sacrifice everything at the drop of a hat should the drums of war start beating again like they did for many of us when we served. Look, I get how in this moment it'd be easy to feel defeated, to want to tune out rather than turn on the news. But now, more than ever, we can't let ourselves become disengaged because there is too much at stake to get discouraged. The reality is there will always be people in big fancy buildings who try to use their power to only look out for themselves. But here are 3 things I know. First, the power of the people is always greater than the people in power, at least in this country. Second, those of us here today have never been too scared to take on a tough mission, especially when it means protecting the democracy that we fought so hard and long to defend. And third, we veterans, we sure as hell would never leave a fallen comrade behind. Whether that was one of our buddies on the battlefield or now one of the folks getting fired or left without care at the VA. So if we want tomorrow to be better than yesterday, we have to come together. We have to recognize that our voices do still matter. Then we got to use those voices to speak out, even if, and actually especially when, anyone tries to silence us. Let them try. Because we veterans have always been the ones helping to keep this nation as strong as she should be. And this moment is no exception. And along the way, you have my word that I will be there with you. We're in this together. And I will always live by the soldier's creed, never ever leaving a fallen comrade behind. It's an honor to call myself part of this team and to have you as my battle buddies in this fight. Thank you. God bless America.
We have to put all of our petty differences aside, and we have to be able to put action behind what we're doing. We don't get the services that we need as it is, so we're fighting for the little bit that we have. Even if none of this took place, we were still at a deficit. If we replace all of this right now, if they were to set this right now and say we're not going to touch it, we're still at a deficit. We still could do so much more for veterans than what we are doing. I just want to know, how is taking 83,000 jobs from working people making America great or putting us first?
Memorial Day 2007, I had been stop-lossed. My exit term is, my ETS date, my exit term of service date, turned into my new deployment date. I got about 4 months of warning between the stop-loss orders and what would have been the end of my enlistment. Memorial Day, I went out onto Soldiers Field on Fort Stewart, Georgia, and I took a handful of Percocet and a bottle of vodka, and I tried to go. They planted a tree in that field for every one of my brothers and sisters who've fallen from the 3rd Infantry Division. For that crime, I was kicked out of the Army with a less than honorable discharge, a general discharge. They stripped of me my GI Bill. I exited the Army into the Great Recession and was completely unemployable for years. It was the VA that helped put me back together. Now, it was a long and hard 5 years where I was in crisis. But it didn't matter if I showed up without an appointment. If I went to my VA and I said I needed to talk to somebody, my doctor would skip his lunch and make sure that he saw me right then and there. Because of the Department of Veterans Affairs and their healthcare system and the flexibility that my VA doctors had, even when the VA was not doing so great in 2008, 2009. It was underfunded, it was understaffed. Iraq and Afghanistan veterans were just getting out. Vietnam veterans were aging. World War II veterans were still filling the hospitals. The people who worked at the VA genuinely cared about my existence. And that is why on Memorial Day of 2025, Sylvie Faye Goldsmith was born. Because of the Department of Veterans Affairs and because of the staff that cared about me, I went from completely unemployable, a complete wreck, someone who lived their childhood dream of serving in the United States military, deploying on behalf of the American people to fight in an American war, like my grandfather and all of his brothers. I turned into a wreck, but the VA brought me back. Because of Voc Rehab, another essential benefit, I did not qualify for the GI Bill still. I still had that bad paper. Voc Rehab sent me to school. I started off at community college with no confidence and a complete fear of failure. I ended up going to Columbia University, graduating with honors, and working for Vietnam Veterans of America. And with a coalition of veterans organizations, every veteran organization you've seen up here today, we work together to pass the Forever GI Bill. So now, every person who earns the GI Bill never has it expire. Our generation, the Montgomery GI Bill generation, we used to have this mandatory 15-year, like they take it and leave it, right? Because of the VA, I was able to come up with the budgetary trick to remove that cap. Because of the VA, my daughter was born. And because of you and the support of you showing up and doing the thing, I know that Unite for Veterans is just at the beginning of accomplishing great things. I want you to look to your left and to your right now. The crowd has thinned out a little bit, and that's okay. I'm not offended. I love the Dropkick Murphys. But these are the people who really give a shit. These are the people who you connect with before you go home. Hint, hint, do that right now. We cannot wait for somebody to save us. Nobody's coming. Our generation does not have a Smedley Butler. It is you. It is us. We will save the VA. Because when we unite for veterans, we unite for America.
Okay, Rally family, how are we feeling? Love to hear it. Okay, our next two guests are proof that duty to country does not end with uniform or party lines. They may come from different sides of the aisle, but they share the same oath, the same courage, and the same commitment. Connor Lamb is a Marine Corps veteran, a former federal prosecutor, and a Pennsylvania congressman who always puts service and solutions ahead of sound bites. He fought for veterans, for workers, and for families with quiet strength and unshakable integrity. Adam Kinzinger is an Air Force veteran and an Illinois congressman who stands when it mattered most, defending democracy, calling out extremism, and putting principle over politics even when it came at a personal cost. These two public servants may have come from different parties, but they are walking the same path now, the path of truth, accountability, and unity. Please welcome these two patriots that remind us what real leadership looks like. Connor Lamb and Adam Kinzinger.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Man, what a fired up crowd. This is great. Thank you so much. Listen, I know that you guys have had everybody tell you all the good reasons to do what you're doing. And I want to say thank you so much, because if anybody has any doubt about the future of this country, whether we'll get through any of these tough moments, I have no doubt, because all I have to do is look around. This is from the ground up. These are people that have said, we believe in our democracy, we believe in our veterans. One thing I want to do, though, because we've talked about a lot, one thing I want to do is talk about why this matters so much. So if you think back to the founding of this country, I want you to think back to the Revolution, right? To a bunch of people standing around saying, you know what, I think we can throw off the British crown, but every one of them had families, they had farms, they had lives, but they made a decision to put principles above what was convenient at that moment. And then you think through all the wars to the Civil War, when an entire generation of Americans stood up to free slaves and preserve the Union at incredible cost. And even after that, America persevered. It persevered through the First World War into the greatest generation, people like my grandfather, who stared down the Nazis in France, by the way, and who could never talk about it because of the damage that it took on him psychologically. And then I think about the Korean War. And if you ever wonder, by the way, what America means, just look at that satellite image of North and South Korea. And if you look at South Korea with the bright lights, you know what America and what freedom means to the world. And then I think about the Vietnam veterans, by the way, that generation. Those of you here that served in Vietnam, you have a special spot in every one of our hearts up here because of what you endured and persevered so we didn't have to. I think about the peacetime veterans. I think about the Cold War veterans, the Desert Storm veterans, the post 9/11 generation. And my point is this: in 250 years of American history, going through ups, going through downs, it leads us to this finite moment right here, where all these things have been put on different generations. All we're being asked to do is stand up and say we will not back down in the defense of our democracy. All we're being asked to do is to stand up for our veterans and say veterans are more important than tech oligarchs. Veterans are more important than people who want to use the government to make $1 billion. Veterans are the backbone of this country. And that's why this is important, because, ladies and gentlemen, this is not left versus right. This is not even Republican against Democrat. This is freedom and democracy and support for our veterans against those that don't appreciate it and those that would seek authoritarianism in our country. And we're going to say no to that. And we're going to say no loudly. So I just want to say to every one of you, keep your hopes up. Get out there, go to buildings like behind us, talk to your members of Congress, talk to your senators, let them know that we will not be silent because we all stand here together. It doesn't matter where we come from, what state we grew up in, what our ethnicity is, who we love, any of our background. The only thing that matters is we are proud Americans and we refuse to relent. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce my friend Connor Lamb.
Thank you all for being here. I can tell we're not going to have any problems with this crowd. I will say, in my experience, sometimes it's a little hard to get veterans to speak up on their own behalf, isn't it? Because your service taught you that it's not about you. It was about putting the country first. And that wasn't always easy, was it? You followed orders you maybe didn't want to follow sometimes. You looked out for the person to your right and to your left, even when you didn't like that person. You went out in the heat, in the cold, in the rain. I'm told they even do that in the Air Force, actually, right? You did all those things because you knew the country needed something done. But we have come to a time when people who work down there and people who work in the Oval Office, who never served a day in their lives, are throwing out people who served their entire careers. And that service is supposed to be bigger than politics. It is. It's not supposed to be red or blue. But when politicians attack veterans and the people who take care of veterans at the VA, we have to enter the arena. We have to be the ones to speak up about why we served. Was it for a good government job? No. It was about the mission, wasn't it? It was about the country. This attack on our veterans and their jobs and the people who take care of them is an attack on every single one of us. Because it's an attack on what we believe. See, Elon Musk, he came to this town. And what did he do? He pecked at a keyboard. Could that guy survive one day at Paris Island or Fort Benning?
He's a pecker!
So who is he to judge anyone's service? We have to be the ones to speak up for these public servants. We swore an oath. Was that oath to any president? No! That oath was to the Constitution, which is there exactly for times like these, where people are in government not because they want to serve, but because they want power, and they think they're above the law. What they've done to these veterans is against the law. We swore to serve a government that follows the law, and our service continues. Does your oath continue? Yes, it does. And so it's incumbent upon every single one of us to stand up and say that. And these guys that think they're so powerful because they can fire veterans, they have no idea the power that veterans have as long as we stand together. You have seen your whole lives the power of what we believe in. You've seen how the military brings out the best in people, how real leaders build people up and teach them to leave no one behind, how real leaders set an example of things like honor and courage and commitment, things that are hard to find in the government these days, hard to find when they rip up union contracts and they break promises to our veterans while they're getting rich. And the corruption, the dishonesty, they want you to think that's just how it works now. That's how things are. You tell me, are we going to accept that? No! This is a democracy last time I checked. So Adam and I want them to hear what you really think. We want them to hear you all the way at the Capitol. We want them to hear you in the Oval Office. And we want to send a message that's not red or blue, that's not Republican or Democrat, and it's bigger than whoever controls the Congress or whoever controls the Oval Office. So you tell me, should all those veterans that have been fired from the federal workforce get their jobs back so they can keep serving the country?
Yeah, get the jobs back! Get Kris jobs back!
Should the VA be fully funded and the doctors and nurses allowed to do their job?
I got one for you. Do 22-year-old Doge members know anything about service? And as Americans and American veterans, do we stand with our friends like those fighting for their freedom in Ukraine?
That's it. You guys know what this is about. All we can do is ask you to never give up. Every rally, no matter how small, no matter in how red an area, how red a town, it is meaningful. We have to make our voices heard. Your oath continues forever. Please keep speaking up, and thank you for being here today. Thank you.
This rally has been about uniting for veterans mostly, right? We talked about VA, my friends have talked about their services, but you see the second part up there? Unite for America. I want you to take this experience with you at home across the country. We have people from all 50 states. We're on a live stream across the country. Hell, C-SPAN's here. We're veterans, but first and foremost, we are Americans. We are America.